background and what you've been doing.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, I started out in the fantasy sports industry over 20 years ago. My friends and I, we created a site called Commissioner.com. We were one of the first ones to put fantasy sports on the internet. We hooked up with CBS Sportsline, did all their fantasy games, and through them did fantasy games for the NFL, Major League Baseball, and PGA, and we ended up selling that company to CBS Sportsline in the end of '99, and Commissioner.com is in the FSTA Hall of Fame. Been involved in various tech projects since then, and got into crypto about a little over 2 years ago. Got involved in a cryptocurrency called Game Credits, which has been around for about 3.5 years. It was created by game developers, for game developers. There's a huge worldwide community of gamers using Game Credits. We have 4 offices around the world, over 100 developers working on various projects. I mean, you can go learn more at GameCredits.com. And I'm here because there's a lot of advantages that cryptocurrency can have for fantasy sports companies, and I'm sure we're going to get into that a lot more later.
Great, thank you, Matt. Kingsley?
Hi, I'm Kingsley. I started a company called LeetCoin back in 2013. It was an online skill-based platform where players could play against each other in popular video games like Counter-Strike, League of Legends, Minecraft for Bitcoin. Since then, that was kind of at the 2013. We witnessed kind of the first really surge, or probably the second surge in Bitcoin price, and then once it sorry, kind of loose. There we go. Once we also helped set up the first esports lounge in downtown Las Vegas. More recently, last year, I sold LeetCoin, which turned into Leets, to Unicorn right before we ended up doing our token sale there, where we raised or sold over $33 million in crypto, our own cryptocurrency, Unicorn Gold, and that's now my focus now is helping with the adoption and kind of helping plan out the roadmap for our crypto token.
Great, thanks, Kingsley. Saurabh?
Yeah, so doing something a little different than probably most people up here in the audience. We actually, a couple of years ago, decided to take fantasy football and gaming to the next level and let fans actually run real-life football teams. So a couple of years ago, we were awarded a new franchise in the Indoor Football League. It's a 10-team indoor arena league, the same league that Kurt Warner's Iowa Barnstormers play in. And in October of 2015, we were awarded that team, and from that day, we let fans of the team make all the decisions. So fans picked a city. We ended up in Salt Lake City. Fans hired our coach. Fans named our team the Salt Lake Screaming Eagles, narrowly beating out Teamy McTeamface and the Stormin' Mormons. And then we actually let fans pick the players that made the team, and we built a real-time mobile app that let fans call all of the plays in real time for a 16-game season. So our season last year was from February to June. Our team finished 5-11, but actually in a 10-team league had the 3rd-ranked offense run by the fans. We had Sports Illustrated cover us for the season. We had an integration with Twitch and broadcast our home games on Twitch. And now we're taking this to the next level. We're actually building an entire league. So we're building an 8-team league called the Fan Controlled Football League. It's going to debut in 2018. And we are building a coin around that called the Fan Token. And the Fan Token is actually going to be the voting power of the league. So more tokens a fan owns or controls, the more influence they're going to have on the teams that they follow.
I told you you'd find it interesting. It's like this morning, Jim was talking about the crossover between fantasy and real sports. So we're going to talk about the application of tokens and coins to fantasy sports, but this is not fantasy, this is real. They're calling the plays. So let's start with the basics. There are a lot of people in this room who have not yet done anything with cryptocurrency. They haven't owned it. They haven't even thought about using it for fantasy games. Talk to those people. Matt, what is cryptocurrency? What are we talking about?
Okay, we're actually talking about a new type of digital currency that's based on the blockchain. I'm sure you've all heard the word blockchain before. What the blockchain is literally a list of every single transaction of that currency. And the blockchain is a distributed ledger, which means that it's distributed around the world. There could be millions of copies, actually, of the blockchain all around the world, and they all have to agree. So when you want to transact in a cryptocurrency, everyone has their wallet and their address. So you just send it to their address, which is their public key, and then the currency gets sent, and it needs to be verified. And I'm sure you've probably heard of mining as well, cryptocurrency mining. People have probably bragged, oh, I set up my computer, I did some mining, I got some bitcoins and other currencies. Well, mining is solving complicated cryptographic equations in order to verify the transaction. So whoever verifies the transaction will either get a block reward or they'll get a mining fee for verifying that transaction. Then it gets added to the blockchain, and then it gets distributed. And so anyone looking at the blockchain can see that that's a valid transaction.
So Kingsley, help me out here. Why does this digital currency thing that lives on the blockchain, why does it have value? What gives it value? Why are we seeing spikes in value? What's that about? What's the value of cryptocurrency?
People are starting to understand that what, I guess, cryptocurrency really is, and a lot of, I recommend that kind of everyone here read Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper. So basically, you know, just going off of what he said, this is a permissionless currency that's not tied to a state or a nation, and it's also it's a currency that can, you know, is distributed as well and permissionless. So it's one that's also controlled by not, you know, necessarily people, but math that's agreed upon. So you know, even if one mining operation or whatever gets taken down in Iceland or wherever, the currency lives on, and it's all controlled by algorithms and, you know, controlled inflation rates, and all these different types of currencies have different features that are built inside of them. But it's a very interesting space for sure.
Okay, so I want to make sure everybody understands the difference we're talking about. Cryptocurrency is on the blockchain, but it's not all the blockchain is about. The blockchain can be used for different things. What is the blockchain, and what else can it be used for?
Sure. I think the easiest way to understand blockchain is that it's really just no more than a database, right? So you call it a distributed ledger, but really it's just recording transactions, and those transactions are recorded across multiple computers around the world. So there's no way to hack it. It's safe. It's trustworthy, and as Kingsley said, trustless. So you don't necessarily have to trust somebody to trust the data. I think that's the most important thing. One of the interesting applications that I think we're using blockchain for, that I think will actually revolutionize probably a lot of things when it comes to government, is voting. So if you think about voting right now, hanging chads and all the other crap that we have to deal with in this world, voting on the blockchain can become something where we can go cast a vote. Those votes are tallied and distributed, and there's no way to mess with those votes. There's no way to hack those votes, and it becomes not only transparent and it's public, right? So anybody can go look at the blockchain and see the votes and tally the votes for themselves, and we don't need people behind closed doors telling us what the outcome was for voting. So for us, this is important, right? We're building a real-life league where players and coaches, careers are on the line. We're putting those careers in the hands of fans. And so for us, it's transparency in that voting process to give players, coaches, and fans the ability to see these votes in real time and trust the process.
Okay, so we know that we have something called cryptocurrency. We have blockchain, which has more uses than just for currency. There are currencies out there. There's Bitcoin, there's Ethereum, there's Litecoin, there's lots of currencies. When somebody wants to start their own currency, what do they do? How do they do that? And how does that relate to this thing we hear about called an ICO? Kingsley, if you could help with that.
That could be a long question, or a long answer. So an ICO is an initial coin offering, and there's other names depending upon the type of structure. So for instance, with Unicorn and Unicorn Gold, we had a token sale. But what initial coin offering is, in the beginning, it was seen as a way easily to raise funds, typically or similar to like a security, and we saw some applications with that in the beginning. But more and more, there's other companies like Unicorn that have created something that's called a utility token that can be used not only on our platform and for the types of products and services that we provide, but other products and services as well, and other platforms. Yeah.
All right, so let's take that, because this is the final concept people have to understand before we can talk about how we use it in fantasy. There's a utility token and there's an equity token. Those are two different things. Can someone explain the difference between an equity token and utility token? Matt, I see you moving with the mic.
Sure. A utility token is a token that provides some utility in an economy. It's used either for the payment of goods or services, or used in some other way inside some ecosystem that the creator of the coin has. So, for example, like with game credits, the token is used to buy games, to buy in-game items, to enter contests and things like that. Now, an equity token is a situation where the token actually gives you a piece of equity in the company, or it could give you a certain percentage of the revenue that the company generates. The distinction is very important, because if you have an equity token, the SEC is going to want you to register your ICO, and that involves a lot more paperwork, a lot more time, and you're probably not going to get as many investors. So most of the ICOs classify themselves as utility tokens, because as a utility token, it's not necessary to register under any of the SEC regulations.
Right, it's not just that you will get fewer investors, you won't be able to sell to as many people, because the SEC will regard the equity token like a share of stock, and it's like crowdfunding and trying to sell a share of stock, which you're limited in. Great, okay, so we have these concepts down. If I understand correctly, if the FSTA wants to use a token for voting for the board of directors, we would have a utility token, we could issue the FSTA coin, and all the coin holders could vote. And is that how the FCFL works with voting?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the fan token is actually going to be available for pre-purchase in our token sale, and then we're also using it for rewards. So I think that's the other interesting piece. We're rewarding interaction in our network, right? So as people continue to engage with the team, consume content, vote, call plays successfully. That's how we're tying it into kind of the fantasy angle, is leaderboards based on the number of touchdowns fans score and the number of yards they rack up as they're calling plays. They're also going to be able to earn tokens, the fan token. So this for us is voting, and it's also kind of a reward and a mechanism, a measurement mechanism to show competition in the league and show that you're the best fan.
Okay, so the simplest thing a fantasy operator could do right now in the room is, if you wanted to start accepting a cryptocurrency as payment instead of cash, you could pick from a variety of currencies that are out there. You could use game credits, maybe you could use Unicoin Gold, you could use Bitcoin. Why would somebody want to do that? Why would somebody in this room who's currently running a fantasy business and they're just taking dollars want to think about switching to a type of cryptocurrency?
Yeah, there are a lot of advantages. One of the main advantages is the cost savings. So, for example, your bank charges, your PayPal charges could be anywhere from 3 to 5% of the deposits that the fantasy company takes in. Assuming that the fantasy company gives out 90% of what they take in as prizes, that 3 to 5% becomes 30 to 50% of your actual revenue intake. So, for example, game credits has no transaction fees. So if you accept game credits as a form of payment and you give out the prizes in game credits, there will be no transaction fees, and that 10% service fee, you'll keep 100% of that. That's one advantage. There are also, several other advantages. There's a whole community that you can promote your game to. If the coin has its own community, it could be rather large. And another advantage is the automatic segregation of user and operational funds, which some of these states require, like Pennsylvania. So just by its very nature, with the crypto, the payment comes from the user's wallet. The account is not held on the fantasy site. So you enter the game, and then the winnings are dished out automatically. There's also, less administration for the fantasy company as well.
That's great. That's great. That sounds like those great advantages, and it can help with some of the legal requirements that we advise on, like segregation. Although with know your customer rules and anti-money laundering rules, do cryptocurrencies pose any benefits or problems in those areas? Do they solve for any of that?
Yeah, so for us, we're fully regulated in compliance. So yeah, we take AML and KYC very seriously. Even during our token sale, we made sure that we knew every single customer that was buying into our token, and we still have the same on the back side for our esports book and other products that are online right now. So, what was mentioned, being on the blockchain, it's actually, I would say, can be even more transparent than going through traditional payment routes.
So not to make this sound like a sales pitch, because it's not. There are probably some downsides too, right? One thing is the volatility. If somebody has a game tied to dollars and they start taking Bitcoin, we heard from the last panel that the price can change dramatically. What would be other downsides of switching to cryptocurrency, and maybe even the fact that whether users have the cryptocurrency and can buy it?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's right now a pretty Wild West type of regulatory environment, right? So the SEC has been relatively quiet in terms of their views on this. They've given very little guidance. So I think there's, anybody that's kind of moving into the space is absolutely taking a risk. My personal view, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not giving legal advice, but my personal view is...
I am a lawyer, but I'll give you legal advice later.
The SEC is taking a wait-and-see approach, and I think what they're looking for is kind of, true fraud. I think they're looking at this as really an innovative space, and if you see some of the companies and some of the businesses that are being built and created in the blockchain and crypto space, I think they're going to let that innovation continue. So that's the viewpoint that we're taking. We're building a utility token. Our token runs on the Ethereum blockchain, which is one of the largest and where most ICOs happen. It is a risk. It is a risk for us. We could have gone down a traditional fundraising path. I think one of the advantages, as you mentioned, what are some of the advantages for a token? We actually get to build a community that has a vested interest in this league before the league is even built. I think by selling your token, you're able to create really passionate and rabid fans, and that's not just for us, that's for any business, right? So that opportunity to go out, create a community, a passionate community that's interested in the business that you're building, and then they help make that business as you put it together. It's a rare opportunity. And then the second one is, from a personal experience from being a founder of multiple companies, raising money is difficult. It's never easy to raise money. It's not easy to raise money in the crypto space either, but there is certainly momentum in this space, and if you bring a legitimate project to market, the crypto world, and it's a worldwide audience, you're not limited to North America, it's a worldwide global audience. They are passionate about helping projects come to market. So if you are true and transparent in what you're trying to build, and this isn't a money grab for you, you actually have a legitimate reason to build on the blockchain and create a token, you'll see that the actual community itself is very, very powerful and can help bring your business to the forefront. These guys, both of them had great success in their ICOs. We're still in our pre-sale, but we've had some really good success. Actually, we were the first token sale on the Indiegogo platform. They just launched an ICO platform. We were the first one there, and we're able to raise $5.2 million in 10 days just before the holidays. So the market is there and the support is there to build this.
That sounds pretty appealing. Let's show of hands. I want to make sure we're catching everybody in the room in the right place. How many of you in this room own some form of cryptocurrency? Okay, we got about a third. All right, for those who don't and want to start experimenting with it, what can they do? What can they do before they're going to decide whether to bring cryptocurrency into their game? They might want to own some and have the experience of a user buying it. What would they do?
I'll just. I think the easiest is Coinbase. I mean, I think that's the most logical place to start. I think that's probably where 90% of people, at least in the U.S., start. So with a Coinbase account, that's where I started actually. I think go to Coinbase. It's very easy to use, and then I think as Kingsley said, read. There's plenty of great articles and great content out there to understand this movement. And I think once you get past the hype and once you get past some of the fraud that's out there as well, because there are a lot of people doing things the wrong way, blockchain is truly revolutionary. This is going to be an industry that kind of transforms the world over the course of the next 10 or 20 years, and it's definitely worth spending some time looking at.
All right, so let's take it up from 101 to 201 a little bit. Forget using cryptocurrency that's out there for people's existing games. They want to do an ICO. They want to launch their own token. They either want to do it to raise funds, or they want to do it for the reasons you described, to get buy-in for a base of people who are going to go play on their platform and really devote themselves. What should they know? They want to launch an ICO. You've run a successful ICO. You've run a successful ICO. You're in the middle of a pre-sale. What do people need to know to start down that path, and why? And a lot of important questions. Why would they do it? How would they do it? What do they need to know? You guys are the experts.
Okay, the first thing you need to know are the securities laws and the recent securities rulings. Actually, there was a recent one, the Munchie ruling, which detailed very much what the Securities Commission considers a utility token versus an equity token. I mean, there's no bright line test, but any guidance that the SEC has is worth noting. Secondly, in order to do an ICO, you're going to need to reach out to the crypto community. If you have an idea of doing an ICO, even if you have a lot of users, your users probably aren't familiar with crypto. Maybe a few of them might jump in on the ICO. But to do an ICO, you're going to need a significant marketing budget, because you're really going to need the crypto community, and you're going to have to show the crypto community why the coin is going to increase in value, because frankly, that's all they care about. They're looking for 10, 20, 100 times return from their investment. So so you have to plan out in advance what is going to give the coin value, what is going to cause your new coin to increase in value over time, and generally that's use in the economy, increasing demand for the coin, various ways that the coin can be utilized in the economy and ecosystem that you're creating. But you really have to make that case to the crypto community, or the crowd sale is probably not going to raise that much.
Although you have to be very careful, because again, if you're promising returns, if you're saying you're going to get a percentage of our income, you're going to get a dividend on the coin, it's going to increase in value in the pre-sale, the SEC is more likely to view that as a security than if you say it's got utility in our system.
Well, not only that, it's just promising or speculating that the coin is going to increase in value, right? So again, we're creating a utility token. The value for the utility token we're creating is in our network. So the more uses that we can provide for that token, and the more that network grows, that's the value of the token that we're creating is going to grow. But at no point in time can we ever say, buy our token because it's going to be worth 500% later. Right, so and that's something I would suggest. If you want to do an ICO, number one is get a great lawyer. You have to have great legal representation here. The Munchie that Matt mentioned here, they had to return something like $14 million from their ICO to everybody who gave them money, because they were promising an increase in value for the token that they were selling, and they were selling a utility token. So it's absolutely, from a legal standpoint, something that you want to be careful with. And then my advice, I think there are a lot of people with their hand out in this industry, a lot of people with their hand out, and there are people that call themselves experts, and they think they're experts because they bought Ethereum 3 months ago and now it's worth 5x what they bought it at, so now they're a cryptocurrency expert. So I'd also just be very careful in terms of the people that are calling themselves experts, and surround yourself with the right group of people that actually understand the technology itself, understand the space, and can help you kind of bring your product to market.
Kingsley, let's let you get the last word in here, and then we're going to open for questions, because I know popular topic. I have more questions I can ask them, but we want to hear from you. So Digger, if you've got the mic or are ready. Kingsley, last word on ICOs, why they want to do it, what advice you give.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that was said here. I always say that the biggest thing is community, so having your own community, and then what was spoke about, having an appeal to the crypto community. Even with with us, with esports and video games, our community initially was more comfortable with the idea of cryptocurrency. There's already been digital assets like CS:GO skins and these other things that have been traded over the years for Bitcoin and now Ethereum. But still, it's such a small percentage of what our community is, somewhere around 1 to 2%. So there was a lot of marketing efforts that were done and community building in the crypto space. And then also once you're actually doing your token sale, it's a lot of it's about clear and concise communication. Both and also after the token sale as well, just keeping clear communication between you and the community that you're building with your token.
Right. I mean, we've only touched a little bit too on the legal issues that come up. There's a lot to worry about. There are state laws on money transmitting that may get involved in crypto. There's specific laws in New York about bit license and registration. There's the securities test. There's a lot of legal issues to deal with too. But I think your advice as to why people want to do it and how they should think about it has been right on the money. The legal issues they can solve later. So questions from the audience. I don't know who's walking around with the mic.
We've got one right back.
Thanks, Aaron.
How do you feel the Tether situation is going to play out? Over 850 million printed this month, over 2 billion already printed. Is it going to have a big impact? Is it big enough? Is it going to get big enough? Is it going to stop?
Can you give a minute background on the Tether situation?
Yeah, sure. So there's a lot of controversy right now with what's going on with a currency out there called USD Tether that's tied to the US dollar, or is supposed to be. So I can't really, I've been reading up probably just as much as you on all the CoinDesk and Cointelegraph outlets, but yeah, I think especially over the past year we've seen kind of larger and larger either heists due to kind of the centralization of cryptocurrencies in an exchange or a particular wallet that was compromised. With Tether, there's a lot that's still unknown. And there's still a lot of secrecy as far as what happens with Tether in the background. So I think I think as far as the cryptocurrency market, I think that it may affect it a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be. It'll be just a blip in the map as far as the long term.
We do have about 5 minutes left for some more questions. The hardest bit getting into this space is knowing who to listen to. What are the places that you go to or the people that you listen to the most when advising on the crypto market?
Is that for anyone in particular or the whole panel?
Anyone, yeah.
I'm a big fan of Andreas Antonopoulos on YouTube. He's a good one to start off. I think one of his most famous talks is I can't remember it now, but it's on his YouTube, Andreas Antonopoulos. And there's quite a few other, but yeah, you have to be careful, especially on YouTube, because there's a lot of scammers that are just going to promote other ICOs, and they're just looking for their affiliate kickbacks. So it's best to kind of look for the credible people that have been in the space. Barry Silbert with the Digital Currency Group, Consensus. There's all these different types of groups, Pantera. So I would just kind of look for those kind of industry leaders. Also Tim Draper, Boost VC, all these types of people, and then kind of see what maybe they're posting on their social media and kind of fall from there.
I'll give you one legal tip. The FTC generally says that if you are going to be profiting from something you're recommending and you make it seem like you're recommending it because you just believe in it when you really have a profit motive, that's deceptive and material. And you have to disclose that to consumers. You should expect in the cryptocurrency space, if somebody is promoting a cryptocurrency, they're probably getting an affiliate commission every time you buy, especially if they're giving you an affiliate code. So you do have to take a lot of the advice out there with a grain of salt, because people are not disclosing the fact that they're getting affiliate commissions. They think everybody knows it, but it's not that well known. Additional questions?
I got a question, I guess, for Mr. Ferruti. You said you've invested in Ethereum, so I know there's other platforms coming out, such as, I guess it's EOS. They say Ethereum on steroids, stuff like that. So my question would be, is it easy for you to adapt? Let's say Ethereum goes down, because there's so much uncertainty. Is it easy for you to take your technology and adapt it to something on EOS, or is that a whole big process?
Yeah, we're actually evaluating EOS and a couple of other blockchains as well. So I think Ethereum has become the standard for token sales and ICOs, and I think everybody or most everybody starts there to do their token sale. We're not necessarily tied to Ethereum when it comes to actually the mechanics and the back end of what we're building with the fan-controlled football league. From a cost standpoint and from a speed standpoint, I don't know if anybody's seen CryptoKitties and what happened to the Ethereum network with people wanting to own digital cats, but that actually clogged the network and was about 27% of the traffic over the course of a week or two. So we're looking at and evaluating other blockchains as well for our real-time voting application. So we're not necessarily stuck on Ethereum.
I have a DFS-related question. For players who reside in states where paid DFS is currently not available, does a crypto DFS change that equation at all, or is it kind of the same game?
So I'll jump in. It depends on the reason why the DFS is unavailable in that state. If it's unavailable because it's one of the states where all fantasy is really unavailable, the presence of these currencies and using the blockchain won't solve any of those problems. Those are regulatory problems. In states where there is licensing, crypto will solve some of the regulatory problems that companies may have. And we talked about some of them, like segregation of funds. We're creating a separate LLC or creating a trust account. Crypto may solve for that, but I don't see cryptocurrency unlocking any jurisdictions where DFS can't be offered. Anyone here have a different view?
I mean, it can unlock it, but you also run the chance of getting thrown in prison, potentially, or getting fined, heavily. So yeah, for us even, it wasn't about skirting any regulations. It had more about to do with payments and banking.
Right. I think maybe your question leads into the question that I think Jay's about to ask, which is about cash and cash equivalents. Because if I understand your question correctly, you're saying those states won't allow paid play, but I'm playing on a cryptocurrency, I'm not giving cash, maybe it's not paid play. If that's where you're going, Jay, I see you have the mic. You want to supplement that?
Yes. So it's a question that I get from a lot of startups, operators, just asking about getting into this space now to be an operator because of the expenses from regulation and licensing. And you look at the laws, and the laws say to be a paid fantasy sports contest operator, you are accepting a cash or cash equivalent. Is cryptocurrency a cash or cash equivalent, or is it more like a commodity or a future? Who defines that? Because if you look at the way we've pushed the gray zones in other areas, it's interesting, and I'd really like maybe your take on that, because in that case, if you are a crypto operator and that's all you operated in, you may be treated like a free operator.
So it's somewhat a legal question. I'll take it and then throw it to you guys to supplement. But really the question in a lot of the states is whether the thing you're paying has value. It's not really whether it's a cash or cash equivalent under most state laws. It's whether it has value. And it would be really hard to argue that a traded cryptocurrency on an exchange that you can go to Coinbase or Bittrex and exchange it for cash doesn't have value. So maybe your question would only be true if it's not cryptocurrency, but it's your own ICO currency and there's no way out of it into cash. Maybe you could argue it has no value. But if there's no way out of it into cash, it's going to be hard to get a lot of people to buy the currency. You certainly can play for free points, and there's no way out of those, but I'm not sure you're going to run a successful ICO if there's no way out. You guys have thoughts on the question?
Yeah, no, I agree totally. I mean, one of the reasons we picked Ethereum was for that reason, because it is a public blockchain. So I think you can there's plenty of private blockchains, and you can build some really great applications on a private blockchain. But then building that community and getting that support early on for your token is going to become much more difficult.
So I'm afraid we have to wrap it up, but I know everybody's going to be around to answer questions. I will ask one thing. At lunch, when you're sitting at your tables and giving feedback, if this is the kind of panel you liked and you want to have more of at the next conference, please tell somebody at your table, please fill it out. If on the other hand, this is enough, we've gotten cryptocurrency done, and you want to hear more about Hollywood and fantasy or some of the other topics, write that down, because we will, in fact, take that into account at the board and figure out what the next panels should look like. So if you'd give my panelists a round of applause, thank you very much.